friends, and welcome back to another reading vlog. Today we're going to dive into trying to get through a bunch of the books that I've ordered during isolation. Basically, because I went to the Black Lives Matter protest here in Melbourne, NAM, organised by the Warriors of Aboriginal Resistance, I have to self-isolate for 2 weeks. So I went back to work for a week and now I'm home for another 2 weeks. So I thought we could spend the rest of this week trying to get through as many books as I can, because I ordered a lot during the last couple of months of isolation. I have just started Escape Routes by Naomi Ishiguro. This is the book club, the Blossom Book Club book for the month of June that I'm reading along with my Discord server on my Patreon. This is a collection of short stories and it's the first time we've read fiction together. So I'm really excited. And can we just talk about, where is it? I guess. It's a really, really pretty book. I have also just started today, It's Our Country, Indigenous Arguments for Meaningful Constitutional Recognition and Reform by Megan Davis and Macia Langton. And this is a kind of a collection of essays that relate to this topic of constitutional recognition, which is kind of a debate and discussion that's been going on for a long time in Australia, but quite concentrated in the last 5 or 10 years. So this book presents several different arguments and thoughts on the topic by different Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander leaders. So these are the 2 books we're starting with. Hopefully we'll get to a few more. So a lot of this is going to just be at home reading and hanging out and drinking too much tea. It is very early and we are here because I need to film. I did film I think 3 videos on the weekend, but I've never had a camera before. This is a new thing for me, and I totally messed up the settings. I did end up still uploading one of the videos because I'd already filmed it twice. That was the Clearing the Tarot review, and I just could not bring myself to do it a 3rd time. But the other videos, I feel like I don't want that to be the norm on my channel, basically. So we've got to film some videos today. But because Blair works from home at the moment, I have to film before he starts work. So I have to get up nice and early to get ready to film. So I thought we could kill 2 birds with one stone, and I could talk to you a little bit about the books I've been reading. A little bit of a get ready with me, have fun. I'm not a pro at makeup, so don't judge me. I just do stuff and hope that it turns out okay. And no, I'm not going to tell you all the products that I'm using because I'm not a makeup channel. I don't know what I'm talking about. I don't want to like influence your purchasing choices at all. I also know I have super hooded eyes, so like it sort of doesn't matter. Although I am very expressive when I speak. So I mean, you sort of see it in videos. I just think it's really fun having colourful eyes. Okay, so these books I've been reading. I have read 2 of the short stories in Escape Routes. The first one took me a little while to get into. I think it was called Wizards. But I did quite like it by the end. It's kind of like this, like 2-person point of view, switching back and forth between kind of like a, not middle-aged guy, but like an adult who's a tarot reader in Brighton. And then the other point of view is a young boy who is also in Brighton, but he's kind of like run away from his parents. It's kind of like how their paths cross, I suppose. So I guess I don't really have strong feelings about Escape Routes yet, but I've only read 2 stories, so I have plenty to go. And I suppose short story collections are always a little bit like that, aren't they? It's a bit of a mixed bag. It's pick and mix. I have been reading It's Our Country a lot more. I think I'm over halfway now. And it's actually a lot easier to read than I thought it would be. I thought it was going to be quite academic, or just heavy, and also, I don't know, like talk about a lot of history that I don't know about. And that's true. Like I know quite a lot of it, but I also don't know it as well as I should or could. I guess like some of the contributors are academics, but a lot aren't. A lot of them are like Torres Strait Islander and Aboriginal elders and leaders. So still obviously very knowledgeable about this topic, but you know, coming at it from a different angle, more community angle, I guess.
as opposed to an academic one. And I didn't realise, I always knew that our constitution was difficult to change, but the perception I'm getting is that it's the most difficult constitution to amend in the world, or at least it's certainly among them. One of the referendums that has been successful in the past was the 1967 one, which basically removed the clause where the Aboriginal people were not counted in the census. And they're talking quite a lot about that referendum and, you know, why it was successful, or, you know, what it can teach us moving forward. There are just a lot of different ideas about what constitutional recognition should look like and also what it should aim to achieve. And most people in this book, I think all but one so far, have argued very strongly that we need to make sure it's not just symbolic. So I guess the debate and the discussion is very much around that. Like, how do we get the most out of this process but still have it be successful? And also not wanting to kind of relive the mistakes of the previous referendum in 1967, which, although significant and did lead to some positive changes, it also wasn't the revolutionary moment that I think a lot of people were hoping for. I want to do some glitter. I love some glitter. I just have to pick a colour. Should we do a pink or a purple? I might do a pink. I've done a lot of purples lately. Ooh, it's pretty. Ah, my camera died. But I've just finished. What do you guys think? I know that you can't really see, but you will see this look in a video, probably before this one actually. But anyway, I need to get to filming. It's unboxing time, and yes, I know that this vlog is supposed to be all about me catching up on the books that I've ordered during isolation, but that doesn't mean that I'm still waiting on a lot of those books that I had ordered. Looks like some of them have just arrived. Ooh, this one is just a little book that I picked up. This is Truth, Tradition and Tomorrow. This is from the series Short Blacks, which is classic shots of Australian writing. This one I'm quite excited about, and it's always nice to have a couple of short books that you can kind of sit down and enjoy in an afternoon. So we might actually read this during this vlog, we'll see. This one seems a lot bigger. This one is the biography of Eddie Mabo. I actually already have this book, but my dad loves biographies and autobiographies and things, and it's his birthday coming up, so I wanted to get him this. So this is a repurchase. Now it is a lovely morning here in Melbourne. It's quite cold, but I've had a shower and I want to do my nails this morning. These are all my nail polishes. Yes, I have a few. I sort of feel like I should do this one. It's called the Crimson Pearl. I don't know, like, I know it's not the same color as my jumper, but it's sort of got like an undertone to it that's quite similar. It's like a purple with like this orangey red shimmer. It's really pretty. So let's give this one a go. I finished my nails and I've been reading all day, and Blair's just finished work, so we are going for a walk. Friends, I have just finished It's Our Country by Megan Davis and Macia Langton. Now, this was a great read, and I'm just really glad that I spent the time reading it. It really covered so many different perspectives on constitutional recognition. Pretty much everybody in this book does agree with the push for constitutional recognition, although almost all of them have different ideas of what that should entail. I will say that I do feel like a perspective was kind of lacking in here, and that is a perspective that I'm more familiar with given my own kind of circle of activism and interest. I think the only person who did kind of represent this idea was Michael Manzel, and that argument is basically that constitutional recognition isn't important, or at least shouldn't be a priority right now, partly because the call for constitutional recognition was not like a grassroots movement, but also because there's a fear that constitutional recognition might harm, whether legally or just in terms of political will, the fight for treaty or treaties. But I do feel like it's worthwhile being informed, a little bit educated on the different ideas about what constitutional recognition could achieve and what it could look like. So I really, really enjoyed this. I ended up kind of like highlighting and flagging quite a lot in here. And we will get back to reading and talking about books a little bit later today. Good evening, friends. It's getting quite late, but I thought we could do a check-in. I finished Escape Routes, and it's one of those things with short story collections. Hey, I really loved maybe 2 or 3 stories in here. There were plenty that I kind of liked, a couple that I really didn't like. I could have almost given this book 5 stars for Flat Roof, which was my favourite story in here.
make me so emotional. And I do really like the author's writing style. It's very kind of blunt and direct and straightforward. And this book definitely has like a running theme of like uncertainty, anxiety, grief, all of those kind of like uncomfortable feelings, and a little existential crisis sort of stuff going on for a lot of these characters. And I actually found that it was the stories that had a little bit of like a fantastical, mystical element to them that I enjoyed the most. And I think that's because I really liked the contrast with her sort of quite sharp writing, and the kind of almost harsh look at humanity, sometimes even cruel, grotesque sort of stuff, but kind of mixing that with these sort of like fairy tale elements, especially towards the ends of some of these stories. I really liked that balance. And this is this author's first book, and I really liked her writing. So I think I'll definitely keep an eye out on her and see what else she comes out with in the future. Then I did also manage to fit in Tradition, Truth and Tomorrow by Galarrwuy Yunupingu. This was a really quick read, but actually this has probably been my favourite thing I've read so far. I gave it 5 stars on GoodReads. I really found it quite impactful, if I'm honest. It's basically just Galarrwuy talking from his own perspective about his life and his journey of being a leader of his community and trying to work with however many prime ministers he's met over the years and however many leaders he's tried to talk to in order to advocate for his community and his people. And he has so much hope and optimism going into all these conversations, and he's just heard a lot of false promises, and I don't know, it's kind of heartbreaking how much this man keeps trying, and he just, every time he feels like he makes he does achieve something, it's like almost immediately the government or big industry, whatever it is like working to chip away at those rights straight away. And it's all the things, like, we know this stuff goes on, but just coming from this really first person narrative of this person who loves his community and his family so much and his land and just his fight for it. But I loved it. It was such a quick read. Like, I don't think it even took me an hour, but definitely left me with a lot of feels and a lot to think about. I have decided to pull out my Kindle and read the 3rd book in the Murderbot Diaries series. This is a series I started earlier in the year and have really been enjoying. I just think it's so funny and fun, but also like action-packed and just really cool. It's just a good sci-fi time. And I've been meaning to continue the series. I think there's 6 volumes in it now, and I've been intending to get around to it, but I've been kind of putting it off because I want to savor it. I don't want to rush through it too much because I'm just loving it. So I'll probably spend some time this evening reading here and then in bed, and I will catch up with you for our last day tomorrow. Good morning. We are off on a little walk. Going to go meet Mum in Footscray. I know it's our last day, and I do want to finish the 3rd book in the Murderbot Diaries today, but I'm never going to pass up a chance to go into Footscray and hang out with Mum. I just got back from hanging out with Mum, and it has been like since well before lockdown that I needed a haircut. So I finally went and got one. What do you think? I did also manage to finish, I keep forgetting the name of the Murderbot number 3. If I had to have any criticism for the Murderbot series, honestly, it's the titles of the individual books. They don't really stand out. I don't really ever remember them. Rogue Protocol was number 3. And honestly, I've seen some people say that it's like not as good as the first 2. It's a bit slower. But actually, I found this one quite emotional. I had a little bit of a cry at the end. Just in case you haven't watched my earlier vlogs, basically this is a story about a security unit, which is kind of like a type of robot or android. Except this one is special because it has hacked its own governor module, so it is sentient. It can make its own choices. And it calls itself Murderbot, given something that happened in its history. And it's our first person narrator, so it's really funny. It keeps getting itself into a bit of trouble, but always my favorite kind of dynamic in these books so far has certainly been the relationship that Murderbot develops with other androids and bots. And it just has a lot of humor. Like, it's action-packed, there's lots going on, there's people dying, other bots shooting. But at the heart of it is just this quite nervous, quite anxious Murderbot that runs through its internal dialogue that's often really quite funny. And in this story, our Murderbot kind of ends up accidentally protecting a group of humans. I think of the 4 books that we've read this week, that is probably my favourite, but I mean, I have the back history of having read the first 2, so I'm already kind of emotionally invested in this character and everything, but it's just such a good time. It's so fun. I love it. My second favourite would still be Tradition, Truth and Tomorrow by Galarrwuy Yunupingu. This was just wonderful. It's just like a short book, all from like first person, kind of just like a brief like overview of his life as far as his relationship to his community and to the land, and his journey of trying to secure his community's rights to that land and to secure their future, you know, through self-determination. And I think what's particularly heartbreaking is just the fact that you can tell that this is not a man who's like fighting for the sake of fighting. Like, he's not out for revenge. He doesn't really even want like some big payback. He's trying to be as reasonable as possible. He goes to those negotiating tables open to solutions. He's not pushing for, like, he's not some radical. Like, I'm not against like the radical approach. I'm just saying, like, he goes into it with this, I'm going to be reasonable, let's talk it out, let's figure it out sort of approach. And at every turn, somebody screws him and his community over. And it's just like, it's frustrating. You can feel his frustration. And yet I think he's quite generous in the way that he talks about the people that he has these interactions with. But especially towards the end of the book, as he's kind of talking about being older, I think he's about 60 by the time he writes this, you can kind of start to see that disappointment, I suppose, coming through of, I think as a young man, he was really quite optimistic that he could make big changes, and certainly he's had a lot of positive impacts, but his community is not where he'd envisioned them to be, and we're getting towards the end of his life. So there's that element that was just really hard to read as well, even though it's not overdone in his narration or anything, but it's so straightforward that those emotions are still, they're raw and they're there. It's Our Country, another great read. I'm just really glad that I read it. I feel like I learnt a lot, not only about the discussion that's currently happening with the potential referendum that may or may not happen sometime in the near future, but I also just learnt a lot about the previous referendum and also just kind of the things that are on the table and that people are thinking about. Earlier I spoke about in this vlog kind of some of the arguments that I'm more familiar with not being represented in here as well. And the reason I said that is not to discredit this book at all, but more just for anybody who does decide to pick this up, that just, I mean, I think it's good to think about with whatever books we're reading, but especially anthologies. I think it's easy to kind of get in our heads that this is all of the ideas. And even though books like this are helpful and amazing, and I'm really glad we have them, it still does not encompass all of the conversation that's going on. And if you're in Australia and you kind of don't understand why people are even talking about constitutional recognition and you want to get a bit of a sense, like start learning about it, this, I think it would be a good place to do that. And then Escape Routes. I really have mixed feelings about this book. Like I said earlier, some of these stories I just adored, like Shearing Season and Flat Roof. I did also really like Accelerate. And I guess this book does feel quite millennial in a lot of ways. Just the sort of stuff that people talk about when they're kind of like analyzing millennials, that we're all like super anxious and overthinking everything, and like we think we're special but then we find out we're super not, which kind of breaks us. I don't know, for me this is a book that largely explores kind of like the modern experience that's all tied up in anxiety, stress, uncertainty, the kind of like the what ifs and what's the right thing to do. And it was funny, I found myself quite identifying with several of the characters, especially in Heart Problems, but at the same time I like resented those characters almost. Like I found them really off-putting. And I guess it has a lot to do with the fact that for me their anxiety felt very like self-centered, and not like in the way that we usually use that word, but just like it's so internal and so almost obsessive that they lack I don't know, empathy, I suppose, for the people around them. And I guess given the fact that I have generalized anxiety disorder, I identified with a lot of those feelings. And maybe I identified with like that behavior as well. And so that's what frustrated me so much about it. You know, like we hate in others what we hate in ourselves sort of thing. And so for that reason, I actually found it quite uncomfortable to read. But this isn't supposed to be a cozy, comfy book. A lot of the stories are quite uncomfortable. But I also really enjoyed her writing, and those few stories that I adored, I loved. Like I didn't just like them, I loved them, especially Flat Roof. So I think I did pretty well for the week. Maybe 8 days. I don't know. I haven't been keeping track of how long I've been vlogging, but the week-ish that I've been vlogging, I think 4 books is a pretty good effort. I hope you enjoyed spending this week with me. Of course, I have to say a big thank you to my patrons over on Patreon, especially to Tracy Timmerman, Laurie, Lynette Brown, and the Hales K. Thank you all so, so much. Thank you for watching. I will see you again in a video soon. Talk to you in the comments, and until next time, much love. Bye.